This is the Inside Data Center podcast. We talk to the people who power the data center sector to give you insider info on everything happening in DC today. Here's your host, Andy Davis.
We're back on the terrace. Different terrace this time though. Joined by my good friend, Rory Flashman Wales.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Why are we here today?
We are here today to talk about National Data Centre Day, brand new awareness day. It's been incepted, kicking off this year, very much really to promote the role of data centres in the digital economy and its role in the UK government's AI ambitions as well.
And we happen to be in a pub, which is a convenient place to record this episode. Obviously more on that to come. So Data Centre Day, you talked about it. Obviously it's the UK. It is the anniversary of when it was declared national critical infrastructure.
Yeah, 12th of September, the day that data centres were designated critical national infrastructure by the UK government.
And I think we've talked a lot, probably too much, according to my wife probably, but about perception of the industry. And I guess one of the reasons we need a Data Centre Day in the UK is largely to try and get that unified message across. The perception of the industry is being, I don't want to say attacked, but there's certain views coming out from the media which are educated views, but without a rhetorical response from the data centre industry. So it's trying to manage that challenge.
Yeah, I think, so if we go back to the inception of the awareness day, one of my colleagues, Eloise, came up with this great idea. Data centers were named critical national infrastructure. We should do an awareness day to celebrate it. Moment of genius. And fundamentally, it was never about the agency. It was all about the industry, right? How can we get better industry advocacy? Exactly what you said. How can we get people talking, telling more stories? The response has just been phenomenal. It's been way more than we ever could have anticipated. I think we're at 50 supporters now, world-leading companies all over the website, and we're getting messages all the time. We're doing this campaign, we're launching this. Obviously, I can't tell you what it is. All I will say is keep an eye on Gen +1 because I feel something well exciting coming. But everybody's doing everything in their own silos. And one of the biggest issues with perception of the industry is that we have no unified message, right? It was one of the big things that Giuseppe said. This whole year, this launch is really just about industry advocacy, getting people talking, getting people sharing content, telling stories about the companies, the good work they're doing, their role in kind of delivering services, whatever those might be. And next year, I think this really gets the ball rolling. Hopefully next year, people will come together and we'll see more collaboration, more joint campaigns, more unified messaging.
Next year we go big.
Bigger. I think it will just keep building, to be honest with you. I mean, but as I say, it was always meant to be about the industry and response has been brilliant, you know?
From a unified message, we've talked about it. It's very hard to get a unified message when you've got X amount of organisations in the industry, all with different agendas or different objectives. So how do we get them together? And do we need to create a unified message? It's probably the start. And if we do that, how can we get everyone on board?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. So I think we talk about collaboration a lot, right? So, and similar to collaboration goes hand in hand with community, right? So we've got, for example, Data Centres Marketing Club. I think you need to get, first of all, those marketing decision makers and the comms decision makers in a room together and start having discussions like, actually, how do we move the dial? What are the big pressing issues facing the industry? Like, and then how do we change them? Is it that we need to go and have a conversation with government? Is it that we need to provide more transparent reporting? That has been a massive issue recently in terms of perception. You know, you talked about not necessarily the industry's getting attacked, but there is a lot of negative media around the industry. You and me were chatting about this the other day and texting that BBC article, right? It's really interesting. I completely understand the industry's need or want to be defensive in response to the recent BBC article. But if you look back at Zoe's social media post, and if you look back at what she's saying, she understands intrinsically that we are dependent on data centers. We need more of them. Like the growth is fundamental to the digital economy. I mean, look, we're recording this in the heart of London, right? And it's the second largest data center cluster in the world. But with that, there is a massive environmental footprint. And I don't think that anyone in the industry would argue that. The issue isn't about data centers in themselves. The issue is about people's understanding of it and a lack of transparent data. And if we can do a better job as an industry of communicating a joint value proposition, if we can provide more transparent reporting, which I know is difficult, I know is massively difficult.
Because for customers.
Yeah, we obviously would have done that already, right? It's the world's best industry that no one's ever heard of. But if we can begin to solve some of those problems around data, access to certain information, you can begin to move the needle, change the dial, and ultimately tell better stories. It's not like Zoe didn't approach the industry, and this isn't me defending the BBC. It's not like she didn't approach a multitude of different stakeholders asking for information, their perspective on certain things. She spent loads of time with Tech UK dining into their water report. Industry's response in general has been quite defensive, and what we're experiencing as a relatively new industry is no different to the industrial sector. It's no different to aerospace. It's no different to energy. It's definitely not any different to water. People are always going to have a negative perception. Let's do a better job of telling better stories that are human and relevant, and educate people, invite them in, open the doors up. Some people have done a great job of doing that, and you'll begin to move things forward.
I think one of the challenges with perception is you're trying to change the perception of so many different people. You've got that perception that we're talking about, the public perception on a broad scale, but then you've got the perception of younger people, who are not going to read the BBC articles. They're not going to read the press releases that the data center industry releases because it's not on their radar. So you've also got, like you mentioned, Gen+1, you've also got that challenge around changing the perception of the industry for people that don't even know what the industry is. And then you've got challenging the perception of the industry for people that think it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
You've then got enhancing the perception of it for people that think it's a positive thing, and maybe some people think it's too positive and are not considering some of the challenges that the industry does have.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite difficult to actually change a perception. If you're in a pub like we are now, and there was 4 or 5 of us sat around a table, we probably all have different views on every industry. It doesn't matter whether it's data centers, aviation, industrial, whatever it is, we'd all have different views. So I think, and you're in PR, I'm not, but it's very hard to create a message that hits home at every single aspect of perception. I mean, there's a problem that we might get too carried away with a perception from the media and not consider the perception of the next generation, or
100%.
people that just don't read or watch the media.
Without a shadow of a doubt, like, how are you communicating with them? What are the stories you're telling? What platforms are we using to tell the stories? And are they relevant to young people? I think the way we communicate as an industry plays right into the hands of the skill shortage as well. We need to begin to provide an education about what we do as a sector and provide pathways into the industry at an earlier level. Some people might call it root and branch, going to primary schools and stuff. Do people know that data centers power roadblocks, for example? We talked about it before.
I think it's even, you've got that level as well as like, do they even know they exist?
Yeah.
That's the challenge, isn't it? I think because the industry is growing so quickly, and I always say this, when you look at any challenge the industry faces, whether it's power, land, skills, it's all because of the rapid growth. It's had no chance or opportunity to really sit there and go, this challenge is coming.
Yeah.
We need to actually plan to manage that challenge. It's like the challenge has arrived before they've even had a chance to plan it. Perception is similar. The industry's gone from nobody knowing what it is, the industry not telling anyone what it is, to all of a sudden, as you've said, especially in the UK, it's national critical infrastructure. That's why we're having this chat. All of a sudden, everyone knows what it is. So then you've got to try and change that message overnight.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, right? Because change takes time. I talk about this all the time. Change takes time and it happens all at once, right? And if you think about just that critical national infrastructure designation, data centers have been critical national infrastructure for years, like years. Blew up in the 80s in the financial boom, absolutely fundamental during the pandemic. Think about a pivot to digital overnight, absolutely fundamental in identifying a vaccine. Genuinely, people depend on this technology in the same way they depend on water and energy and everything else, but without really understanding it.
I guess what you've seen though is when you talk about government, and again, we're not going to get into who the government is or what they're, who we believe in, if any, but you've seen suddenly in the UK, the Labour government approving major developments in areas that maybe not the best area for that community. That community has challenges with them being developed in their region. Could be the right thing, could be the wrong thing. Again, it's not for us to debate that.
You're talking green belts, right?
Green, grey, anything like that. But that, again, because that's become a government rejected it and now a government's approved it, it's obviously a lot happens in between that, it gets press and it gets press attention because they say, well, this project was previously rejected, this project's now approved. What's really changed in there? And then you've got to change that messaging around, we need them because of this, but it obviously impacts communities. And what's not happening, and I know that I've talked about it before on my pod, like KO Data did some great work in Manchester with communities, but they're not, the government definitely is not doing enough to engage with communities in these developments.
I think whether you agree with me or disagree with me from an industry perspective, I think the government thinks it's done enough by removing the red tape and letting data centres potentially be built anywhere, right? And coming back to what you were saying about perception, that does compound a negative perception. Like you could argue Manchester, Scotland, the Northwest, Wales, there are so many sites that have power available all across the UK that are ripe for sustainable redevelopment right now. Inward investment, where with local communities, create jobs, right? Those are the things that aren't really being talked about. All that's being talked about is this massive warehouse being dropped in my back garden, right? You talk about the economic benefits, if you talk about the community benefits, digital benefits with digital transformation benefits, all of the good things that a data center brings with it, that will begin to appeal to people. But I think if we then take one step back from that, right? Take one step back from megawatts, gigawatts, power, any of that stuff, and actually humanize it and talk about what data centers do on a day-to-day basis and the things they enable. No one cares about a data center until can't access their banking app or Facebook goes down. No one cares, but what they don't realize is that data centers are, we talked about this in Cannes, data centers are powering life science innovation, cancer research, so many other good things, the NHS, so many good things that are absolutely essential to everything we do. And yes, there are constraints about what we can and can't talk about. And the industry has been very, very secretive. But if it opens its doors a little bit more and begins to engage with government, communities, as many companies in the industry have started to do already, but they do it together, that sends a much stronger message out.
I agree. I think one of the challenges when you talk about other regions, so outside of Slough or London, and this applies we do quite a lot of work in the US, it applies in the US as well. When they're building these large scale facilities in new communities, so in a community, whether it's Manchester or somewhere in Texas or wherever it is, it's a new community that doesn't know what a data center is. All of a sudden they see a gigawatt scale campus in the US, a 20 megawatt, 30 megawatt in the UK. Facility coming into their region, they see the press release that says the size of it, like you just said, and this will employ 2,000 people during construction and 20 when it's built. So again, you've got that challenge with communities, and it's not correct because the press release, again, you said it, the way that it's communicated does need to communicate better about the impact, the long-term benefits. It's not just about people being employed in the building, it's about what it brings to that community. Like when we went to Start Campus and we went to that restaurant, overlooking a lovely restaurant, overlooking the sea. There was, I don't know how many people were there, 50, 60, 70 of us. There'd be nobody there if we weren't there.
That night, especially, yeah.
You're bringing economy to regions as well. And again, it's not always communicated as well as it can be. And I totally understand why somebody in a community that doesn't know what a data center is suddenly sees a huge construction project happening in their community and thinks there's going to be lorries driving down my road. What's the long-term benefit for me? Raises questions and concerns about it.
I think that's another thing as well. Put yourself in the shoes of the people who live around.
It's like, would you want one in your backyard? It's the old NIMBY thing, isn't it? It's like,
without a doubt.
I wouldn't want one in my backyard because my backyard's not very big.
True, but then the flip side of that is if you live in a city and you live next to an old industrial mill that is in complete disrepair, absolute state, covered in graffiti, weeds everywhere, do you then want a business to come in and regenerate that, which will attract other businesses?
And that's where I'm going with the grey belt. I'm not even going to say green belt because they're not green belt. They'll be said they're green belt, but grey belt. I'm not saying they're the wrong location. It's just how that's communicated is so much more critical than, like you say, an old power station or an industrial site, a brownfield site that needs regeneration. Massive advantage to everybody, and I think people wouldn't question that.
You are 100%, but you know, we're talking about terms that we know and understand, right?
Yeah, they don't know.
Brownfield growth. No one knows what that means. And the other thing you have to be mindful of, especially from a publicity standpoint, is that we have negative bias, right? There used to be like this old adage, pages pay wages, right? You sell more pages, and that's what pays the newspapers and the magazines. The goal nowadays is to keep people on websites, keep them on news platforms, right? They want negative stories. That's why there's so much junk out there. Like, people want negative stories. So 9 times out of 10, the negative news, building on the green belt, removing the red tape, is going to dwarf any good that one particular company does on its own. And if you look at the industry, there are so many companies doing so many great things, working with local communities. But when we talk about perception, you do have to go down to a very, very local level and then build those stories outwards. And when we're talking about national data centers today, this was all about industry advocacy. That was the whole reason for the day. Can we get the industry beginning to tell good stories on the day? And clearly, loads of companies have got good things to say. Next thing is, can we do it together?
Do you think these companies that have good things to say need help communicating it?
I think I'm biased.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Yeah, without
promotional.
No, definitely not. I think some companies do a fantastic job. Other companies can do much better.
Well, I just think,
but equally,
I know
some companies can't say anything, as you know.
Yeah, and I know some of the great stories.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just sat here thinking, you mentioned companies, and we could mention loads of companies. Even the hyperscalers like Google have totally changed how they communicate, and the messages, and Microsoft similar. They've got these blogs now where news comes out.
Yeah.
But do people know they're there? That's my point. It's, again, I always say, and I think you might have said it earlier, we're really good at communicating internally as an industry.
Yeah, okay.
We're really good at telling everybody how great we are and what we're doing, and asking everyone their opinion that's in the industry about what they think of the industry. But getting that comms from within the industry to outside the industry, is, you know better than I do, but it's a very different platform. And sometimes I get people that listen to this and say, I'm not in the industry, but I wanted to learn about it, and I really appreciate what you're doing or get benefit from what you're saying. But that's somebody that's gone off their own back to try and find
100%.
How do we get from talking in the echo chamber, talking to ourselves about how great we all are, to actually getting this message to the masses?
So that is a great question. So the first thing I'm going to say is that what you always have to remember is that whatever we try and communicate is going to be dominated by the news agenda, right? So data centers are in the spotlight.
Should we start our own news channel?
Do you want to do that?
Data Center Club News. Compete with the BBC, these two.
We'll probably end up back in the echo chamber.
There won't have many viewers.
Yeah, just be you and me. Go talking to each other. But so coming back to what you were saying, like, first and foremost, like, the spotlight's on the industry. There are more nationals, there are more broadcast platforms interested in data centers. Like, we've seen data centers feature on Sky, ITV, BBC multiple times. And obviously that's being compounded by the fact there's masses of investment, masses of government interest, right? Especially around things like AI, government's plan for change, all of those sorts of things. If we step back from all of that, I think the key thing is to understand who we're trying to communicate to and why you're trying to do it. That's really, really fundamental. Like, I don't think people really realize that data centers are a data problem, and they are, for the most part, away from demand for cloud, demand for AI, demand for public services. They are literally being driven by the phone in your pocket. No one really understands that you depend on them at that level. If we can humanize this stuff, I've said it a few times now, if you can humanize the stories and make them relevant to people and talk to them about it from a younger age, like, you depend on this stuff, then they'll know more about the industry. But there's a massive education process, And
I think communicating with the masses, we're sat in a pub.
Yeah.
We're recording this in a pub, and the PUBcast, which we'll talk about shortly, is an idea to try and communicate with different demographic, isn't it? And, like, do things like this where you literally open the doors and say, anyone can come in, have a listen. When we do the event, come and find out what about this industry, not having a ticketed approach, just saying, if you want to come and learn, and inviting people from outside to come and learn as well. I think that's really important from an event perspective. But National Data Centre Day, this is going out on National Data Centre Day.
Yeah.
I believe. So you'll all obviously download it on the day we release it because you're big fans. You'll be listening to this on the Data Centre Day. So I guess before we close up, quick question. What can anyone do today on National Data Centre Day to help spread the message?
If you're not involved, get involved. There are free to download toolkits, social media toolkits have been developed by our team, the brilliant Eloise, and loads of my colleagues. Go to the website, download it, start posting. And I would say that the next big thing to be thinking about is, who are my partners? Who are the other organisations that I work with? Can we get some level of cooperation, competitors working together? How can we begin to think about having a unified message? Giuseppe said it really well. We need a unified message coming out of the market to be able to tell a collective story much better. And I think in previous years, people have tried to do that without success. There's been little pockets of initiatives started. I think the communities that we're building, that you and I are directly involved with, that's a great opportunity to get the right marketing comms people in the room. But can you get that collaboration being championed from the top down? And actually thinking about who are the people I work with within the industry, who are the partners that I depend on, can I bring my customers into the fold, and do we have a way to tell a story with a host of companies or as an industry versus doing it all in a silo?
Yeah, and I'd say Data Centre Marketing Club helps with that, but we'll facilitate it. If anyone listening wants, we'll facilitate it. Come and speak to us and we'll get it going. And finally, we're in a pub for a reason.
We are.
16th of October, I think we'll be back.
Excited. Yeah.
Inside Data Centre PUBcast.
Thanks for having me again.
Pleasure. So again, we talked about it briefly, but the idea behind that is to try and break down a few barriers, get people in a more of a casual environment, have a chat over a beer in a pub and talk about the industry, and the topic will be perception. So how can we change perception?
Indeed. I'm quite excited to actually hear from the people who are going to be on these discussions as well, and hear their thoughts, because it's what you and I think. We'll be text each other on the weekend and the conversations we have, but then actually hearing how the industry is going to work together and different perspectives with lots of different senior leaders who aren't involved in podcasting, comms, is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it'll be in London. We'll put the ticket Eventbrite in the show notes. We'll put the website for National Data Centre Day in the show notes as well.
Definitely,
so you can find it. But hopefully this is a start of something where we can get that unified message out there. As difficult as it is, but try and spread a little bit of data centre love to the masses.
Exactly that. Data centre love to the masses.
End on that one.
Yeah. Cheers for having me. Cheers, mate.